Hi, I'm Stephen King, CEO of GrowthForce. Our world has changed overnight with COVID-19. And in this webinar, I'm going to share with you the 5 steps that we're advising our clients take right now to help manage and improve your cash flow and to help make the hard decisions that you face with data so you can weather this storm. So let's get started. First, you have to have the right mindset. You have to deal with reality. And the reality is this will pass. It's not forever. And if you're not infected by COVID-19, you've got to feel some blessings. My first cousin, is a nurse in an emergency room in a hospital in Queens, New York, the center of the hotspots in the United States. And so if you're not strapped to a ventilator in a hospital in Queens, you've got to have some gratitude because your health is your wealth. And that will help you attack this problem from a positive image, no matter how difficult your situation is. Then, once you feel blessed because your health is your wealth, then you can see, how bad is it? What is the reality? And we're seeing 3 scenarios. First is survival. The retail industry is clearly facing major issues around survival. And the issue there is cash flow. So we're going to focus for them on step 2, cash flow, and cutting costs in step 3. Most of the businesses that we're seeing 40 to 45% are in restructure mode, meaning we're going to make it. This is really bad, but we've got some hard decisions to make, but we're going to come out on the other side. And that's where you focus not only on cash flow and making cuts, but also on your people and who are you going to keep and how do you get more done with less. And then I'm pleased to say a larger than I would have expected percentage of people, 30 to 40%, are in the strengthen mode, which means that they're okay. And they want to use this time to deal with some of the projects that have been sitting on their desks and take advantage of any available downtime that people have got to get stronger, to invest in those people and in automation and in helping you streamline activities and sharpen the saw. So now, whatever scenario you're in, what we're recommending is the first thing you need to do is prepare a business model for each of your cases, a best case, a mid case, and a worst case. This is a simple financial projection model. If you've already got one, now's the time to stress test it to see how much can you afford to take a hit on lost revenue and how much cuts do you need to take. But if you don't, now is the time to get started. And I'll talk later about why having a budget will change the way you run the company. When you do this modeling, you want to look at 2 scenarios. 2 assumptions. You want to look at what's the first assumption of how long will this last? The best case most people are looking at is we'll be back by June. And we're all cautiously optimistic that that's the reality. The mid case for a lot of people is September, October, when the kids go back to school and the workforce is no longer having to do homeschooling and Zoom. And then some people believe it's going to be the worst case. It's going to be a year or more. The answer to this depends on your industry and your part of the country, your region, and how badly is it hit and what's the timing of when it got hit. The second assumption you want to do in your model is you want to look at how bad are the cuts going to be? How much revenue are you going to lose? Is it a best case where you lose a small percent, a mid case you lose a large percentage, or a worst case where we're seeing some of our events marketing agencies lose 90% or more of their revenue, at least for a short period of time. And so you've got to put a model together to figure out what are the reality on your numbers. And we've got some links to some really great tools. We've got a break-even calculator that we've created that will allow you to be able to calculate your break-even based on the different scenarios. And that will tell you how much you have to cut. We've also got some budget templates here from our friends at Fundera.com. This is a blog that has the 5 best budget tools, so you can choose one for your industry and your size of your company. Now let's come to break even, because that's the first data point that you want to have for each of your 3 scenarios. You want to look at what are your fixed costs in dollars, and then divide that by your gross profit percentage. That will tell you how much do you need to bring in dollars in order to break even, in order to not have to tap into your reserve funds. So let's look at the math. If you've got $2 million in fixed costs, your overhead costs, your rent, your utilities, your salaries for the management, and you have a 50% gross profit margin, then you need $4 million of top line revenue to come in order to cover your nut, in order to make sure that you can keep the lights on. If you don't bring in $4 million, let's say that you only have $3 million of revenue coming in, then at that same 50% gross profit, you now can afford $1.5 million in overhead costs. And what that means is you now know I have to cut $500,000 of below the line overhead costs. And we'll walk you through that in step 3. That's why the break even is so important. It tells you how much do you have to cut at each of your different scenarios. And this Breakeven Calculator is a great tool to help you just walk through that process. And that allows you to go through each of the 3 questions. What's the time horizon you've got? How long is this going to last? How bad is it going to be? How much revenue do you think you'll lose? And then step 3, which is how much liquidity do you have? Now, liquidity is cash and cash equivalents. And cash equivalents are things that will convert to cash in the near term, like receivables is the most popular cash equivalent. But now is the time to be looking at any assets that you've got and get as liquid as you can. If you've got equipment that is not generating any revenue, now is a good time to think about selling it.